History is full of wars, kings, and famous discoveries, but every once in a while, something happens that makes historians stop and say, wait, what? Because that's exactly how historians talk. A mysterious signal from deep space. Hundreds of people dancing uncontrollably for weeks. Entire cities rioting over beer prices. Today on ChronoVault, we're looking at 5 historical events, so strange they almost sound fictional, but they're not. Honest. But every one of them actually happened, not just 3 of them. All 5 of them happened. Not even just 4. All of them. Let's start with a signal that may have come from somewhere far beyond Earth. 1. The WOW signal. On August 15th, 1977, astronomers working at the Big Ear Radio Observatory detected something unusual. A powerful radio signal coming from deep space. The signal lasted 72 seconds. It came from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius and was incredibly strong compared to background radio noise. When astronomer Jerry Ayman reviewed the computer printout of the signal, he circled the numbers and wrote one word next to them. Wow. Or maybe he wrote Mom, but it was upside down. We'll never know. The name stuck. The signal had characteristics that made scientists pause. It appeared narrow band, something that often suggests an artificial transmission rather than a natural cosmic source. But there was a problem. Despite decades of searching, the signal has never been detected again. Scientists still don't know what caused it. Possible explanations include an unusual natural cosmic phenomenon, reflected radio signals from Earth, or, in the most speculative theories, an extraterrestrial transmission. To this day, the WOW signal remains one of the most mysterious signals ever recorded. But maybe it was really the Mom signal. Subscribe to ChronoVault. The Dancing Plague of 1518. In July of 1518, a woman began dancing in the streets of Strasbourg. At first, people assumed she was simply celebrating or acting strangely. But she didn't stop. She kept dancing, for hours, then days. Within a week, dozens of people had joined her. Within a month, hundreds of people were dancing uncontrollably. Many collapsed from exhaustion. Historical records report that some participants even died from heart attacks caused by the relentless movement. Doctors at the time believed the condition was caused by overheated blood. Their solution? More dancing. Authorities actually built a stage and hired Bad Bunny, encouraged the afflicted to dance the sickness out. The plan failed spectacularly. Today, historians debate what caused the dancing plague of 1518. Possible explanations include mass psychological hysteria, poisoned grain contaminated with hallucinogenic fungus, severe stress caused by famine and disease. But none fully explain why so many people suddenly began dancing and couldn't stop. Subscribe to ChronoVault. The Great Whiskey Fire of 1875. In June of 1875, a fire broke out in a whiskey warehouse in Dublin. Inside the building were thousands of barrels of whiskey. When the flames reached them, the barrels burst open. Soon, nearly 5,000 barrels of whiskey were flowing through the streets. The alcohol ignited, creating what witnesses described as a burning river of whiskey. Residents rushed outside with buckets, cups, and anything else they could find. Some people soaked their clothes in the whiskey so they could wring it out later. But, believe it or not, drinking whiskey straight from flaming streets turned out to be a terrible idea. You don't say. 13 people died from alcohol poisoning after consuming the spilled whiskey. Incredibly, none of the deaths were caused by the fire itself. It remains one of the strangest disasters involving alcohol ever recorded. Subscribe to ChronoVault. The Tunguska Explosion. On the morning of June 30th, 1908, something exploded over a remote region of Siberia near the Tunguska River. Witnesses reported seeing a brilliant fireball streak across the sky. Moments later, a huge explosion flattened more than 80 million trees across 800 square miles of forest. The shockwave shattered windows hundreds of miles away. It was enormous, just like your mum. Seismic instruments across the world recorded the blast. Yet when scientists later visited the site, they found something surprising. There was no impact crater. The leading explanation is that a meteor exploded in the atmosphere before reaching the ground. But because the event occurred in such a remote area, scientists didn't investigate until nearly 20 years later, leaving many details uncertain. Even today, researchers continue to study the Tunguska event, which remains the most powerful explosion in recorded history, caused by a natural object striking Earth. Subscribe to ChronoVault. The Munich Beer Riots. In 1844, residents of Munich became furious over something very important: the price of beer. When local breweries raised prices, citizens flooded the streets in protest. Crowds smashed taverns, attacked breweries, and clashed with authorities. The riots became so intense that the King of Bavaria, Ludwig of Bavaria, had to intervene personally. His solution? He ordered breweries to reduce beer prices. Once beer became cheaper again, the riots stopped almost immediately. The chaos vanished, just like your dad. It may be one of the few moments in history where public protests successfully forced the government to lower the price of alcohol. Subscribe to ChronoVault. History isn't always predictable. Sometimes it's a mysterious signal from deep space. Sometimes it's hundreds of people dancing until they collapse. And sometimes it's entire cities erupting into riots over the price of beer. The past is full of strange moments like these. And the deeper you look, the stranger it gets. If you enjoy exploring history's weirdest events, subscribe to ChronoVault. Because some of the most fascinating stories in history are the ones that still don't make complete sense. And subscribing will make them make sense. And if it still doesn't make sense, at least you'll be subscribed. Because subscribing always makes sense.